Hey everyone, my name is Zoranne and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be about all of the books I read throughout the month of March. March was such a good reading month and I am so excited to talk to you about all of the books I read. But first, how do we like this new setup? I was filming on my bed before, but now I thought why not try get up a little closer into my little reading nook, you know? I don't know, what do you think? Also, this blank space will be good for being boom, picture. I don't know. Anyways, let's jump right into the video. The first book I read in March, and I finished at the very beginning, was A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I read this throughout most of the entirety of February because it's literally a doorstopper and quite literally took me a month to read. But yeah, I finished it right at the beginning of the month and I loved it so much. I finished it just in time to see Samantha Shannon on her A Day of Fallen Night tour. I saw her in St. Louis. She was just a gem, such a delight to listen to and learn more about her craft and what it's like to be a full-time writer, especially a successful one. But as you probably know, A Day of Fallen Night is the prequel to the beloved Priory of the Orange Tree. It takes place 500 years before the events of Priory. And in this prequel, Samantha Shannon takes a lot of the things that we already have loved about the world that we get to experience in Priory, and she adds a lot more depth and detail to the world and the characters. There's 4 main POVs, and if I had to pick a favorite, I would probably say Glorian or Wolf, but if I really had to pick one, I would say Glorian, who is the Princess of Innis. And in this book, if you have already read Priory, the world is still dealing with a lot of the same issues, mainly the Nameless One and keeping him at bay. So you get to see how all of these POVs and countries and governments kind of intertwine. So while you're reading these POVs, everyone is seemingly separate, but you know in some way, shape, or form they are going to cross paths, and it's really interesting how Samantha Shannon gets us there. I really love this. I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, but my rating shouldn't mean that much. But mainly, I really enjoyed this more than Priory. I thought Priory was really good. I thought it was a solid book, but I think Day of Fallen Night just brings a lot more depth to the world and the characters, and you can really see Samantha Shannon's improvement as a writer, as I said earlier. It really made me feel like I had a more enriching experience reading this. Not to mention that I also really loved the characters a lot more in A Day of Fallen Night compared to Priory. I just thought the POVs were much more engaging, whereas when I was reading Priory, there was just a POV or two that I felt like I was just trying to get through their chapters. Samantha Shannon mentioned on tour that she is going to be writing another Roots of Chaos book. Not sure about what. She did hint a little bit, but I'll read anything this woman writes, and A Day of Fallen Night exceeded my expectations. The next book I read in March was The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart. This is a sequel to The Bone Shard Daughter, which was the Fantasy and Friends pick for February. It was just as good, if not better, than The Bone Shard Daughter. I don't want to talk too much about the synopsis of this book without spoiling The Bone Shard Daughter for you, but just know this takes place in an Asian-inspired world, in an empire that kind of lives along an archipelago. So basically we are hopping while we're reading this book, we are hopping from island to island to read from our different POVs. In this book, we're following our main character, Lynn, and her captain of the guard, Jovis, along with few other POVs, Ranami and Falu, who are also within the government along these islands. And in this world, there's something called bone shard magic, where the emperor of this world, Ray, where those who are skilled enough can carve almost runes into a piece of bone shard that is taken from the back of someone's ear, the bone behind your ear. And you can almost carve commands into them and insert them into what they call constructs to basically make the constructs do what you want them to do. It's very much coding or computer code, or when you're writing a formula in Excel. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Like I said, the Bone Shard Emperor picks up where the Bone Shard Daughter leaves off. Hijinks are ensuing, shit is hitting the fan, nobody knows what's going on, some characters make some bad decisions, and Mephi is just doing his thing. Love him. I really, really liked this sequel. I'm very excited to see where the trilogy is going to conclude in April with the Bone Shard War that comes out on April 18th. I have a feeling the book is going to end in tears, probably mine, because it doesn't take much for me to cry. There's an ancient enemy who is rising and threatening the world as they know it, and Emperor and Jovis might be a part of this plot more than they originally feel like they are. I really can't wait to see where it goes. It's really fast-paced and just a lot of fun. And I gave The Bone Shard Emperor 4 out of 5 stars. The Fantasy and Friends pick for March was The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, and this was a book that I was super excited to get to because it's been on my TBR for a long time, and I've always been told, Zoranne, if you're a fan of John Gwynne, you're gonna like Evan Winter's writing. And the people were right. I love Evan Winter's writing. In The Rage of Dragons, we're following a group called the Omehi people, and they have been at war with this group called the Hideni for generations now, and they are fighting this seemingly unwinnable fight. And so all of the Omehi men basically join the military and they train to fight the Hideni. We're following Tao as he trains to become a soldier in this endless war. At the same time, the Omehi people test the women in their group to see if they are gifted, basically to see if they have the ability to call dragons, or what they call the guardians in this world, because their ability to call guardians is basically what keeps the Hideni at bay. I also don't want to get it twisted and say like, oh, the Omehi people are good and the Hideni people are bad. Like, the lines are very morally blurred. You really don't know who's the good or the bad guy. And I think that really makes this book interesting because we're reading from Tao's POV, right? He's young, he's giftless, all his life he's trained to be a soldier, but until one day his father is basically killed and Tao's like, I'm gonna become a ruthless killing machine and do whatever I have to do to get revenge. And so that's basically the premise of this book, Tao getting revenge. I thought this was a really well executed book because this is a revenge story, if nothing else, and it's really successful at that. And so Tao as a main character is really frustrating sometimes because he makes the same mistake over and over again while he's training to get revenge on the man who killed his father. And you're like, you kind of just want to shake Tao at the same time and be like, oh my god, please don't do this, like you're being stupid. But you're like, the decisions that Tao makes to get where he is completely line up with his character because he's driven by revenge and nothing else. And there's actually a quote in this book that I don't forget what page it's on, but there's actually a quote that goes, Tao wanted revenge more than he wanted to live. And that basically sums this book up in a sentence because that's exactly who Tao is. He wants nothing else. He lives for nothing else but revenge against the man who killed his father, while he's training to be this super soldier in what they call a scale to fight off the Hideni. Tao has his own enemies, and the Omehi also have like the looming threat of the Hideni invasion that's incoming, and Tao is training for both. And you don't know when or ever if he is going to do the right thing because there really is no right thing for Tao because all he knows is vengeance. And I love that for him, but at the same time, it makes him a really frustrating character to read from. I'm really excited to read the sequel, The Fires of Vengeance. I'm not sure when I'll get to it since we don't have a publication date for book 3 out of 4, so I might wait to read it until we know for a release date on book 3, but nevertheless, I really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm excited to continue with the series. The next book I read in March was Emily Henry's newest book, Happy Place, which comes out on April 25th. Y'all know Emily Henry is one of my favorite authors ever. I'm literally wearing my Good Books crew neck today from her book, Book Lovers. She's my ride or die. My favorite romance author by far, if not one of my favorite authors of all time. Happy Place follows Harriet and Wynne, a seemingly perfect couple who have been together for almost 10 years, and we're following them on their week-long vacation at their friend's cabin in Maine. It's a trip they go on every single year without fail, except this year is different than the last because it is the last year they will ever be going on this trip to the cabin in Maine because their friend Sabrina's family is selling the cabin. Another reason why this trip is different is because Harriet and Wynne have broken up. They broke up 5 months ago, in fact, and they haven't told their friends or anyone about it. So this week only, Harry and Wynne decided that they are going to pretend like they are together because they don't want to ruin their last vacation together with their friends. This book is told from Harriet's point of view. It flips between the past and the present. The past is called Happy Place, and the present chapters are basically right now, and we're watching Harriet struggle, deal with this breakup and like the friendships that she feels like she's grieving, and she can't tell anyone about them because her and Wynne have decided that they're going to fake it. But at the same time, they are reconnecting in a lot of their old ways and realizing why they came together all those years ago in the first place, because Harriet and Wynne go together like peanut butter and jelly. Like, they just feel like they were made for each other. And I feel like Emily Henry does a really great job at writing their chemistry. It literally jumps off the page, and her books, as always, have like their great, witty, and sensical charm. I always say that your enjoyment of Emily Henry's books will depend heavily on how well you relate to the main character, and I, for one, definitely related to Harriet. She is an anxious girl. She's a people pleaser. She is hesitant to speak up for what she wants because she doesn't want to ruin anyone's day or inconvenience them in the slightest, and that proves true for a lot of decisions that Harriet makes, because I know some people will say, oh, I really hate the second chance romance book because it's just like, why don't you just talk it out? You're adults. And I feel like when you read this book, you'll understand like why Harriet just can't talk it out or speak her mind, because she's spent her entire life trying to live up to other people's opinion of her and feeling like her choice and her opinions and what she wants has never come first. So she doesn't allow herself to be put first. And it shows true with her friendships, with her family, and even with her relationship with Wynne, which Harriet struggles. You get to watch Harriet struggle a lot, and it's really painful at times because even though this book is titled Happy Place, it is not a happy book. I really thought Emily Henry handled the topics of grief and depression and anxiety really well. Those are often themes within her books, because even though this is a second chance romance, her books always feel more than a romance. They often put the character development first and the romance develops second. And I really love her books for that, because her, for me personally, I find her books, and Happy Place is no exception, to be painfully relatable. To the point where I'm like, bitch, get out of my brain already, because they just hit that close to home. I really enjoyed this. It's not my favorite Emily Henry book. I don't know if anything can top Book Lovers, but then again, I haven't read Beach Read yet. I know, don't come for me, but if this sounds appealing to you and you want a book with anxious girl, people pleaser rep, I really think you'll enjoy it. It's more than a second chance romance. It's more than the miscommunication trope, and Emily Henry does what Emily Henry does best, and she writes painfully relatable heroines that you just can't help but cry and cheer for. The next book I read was Pet by Akwaeke Emezi for the Trans Rights Readathon that took place in March. It takes place in this fictional version of the US in a city called Lucille in the not too far future, where children are taught that monsters no longer exist, they've been eradicated, they shouldn't fear, and there's nothing to fear anymore. And this book follows Jam and her best friend Redemption. Jam accidentally summons a creature from one of her mother's paintings with a drop of her blood on accident, and from that painting leaps Pet, a creature of horns and claws and colors. And Pet says that they have a job to do, and that job is to eradicate a monster that is living in her best friend Redemption's house. Except Jam doesn't believe Pet right away because she's been taught that monsters don't exist, and Pet tries to tell her otherwise. Begrudgingly, Jam agrees to help Pet eradicate this monster if he's telling the truth, because she wants to not only uncover the truth, but she also wants to help her best friend Redemption, because Redemption could be in trouble, and nobody wants their best friend to be in trouble, right? I really enjoyed this book. I listened to it on audio. It asks a lot of great questions from a societal standpoint about what does it mean to be complicit, and how do you get rid of a monster if nobody believes it exists? And it's really a question that can be applied to a lot of things in today's day and age, from a lot of societal issues, government issues, a lot of issues, all of the issues exactly, right? And I thought it was these questions were so carefully and thoughtfully answered for a middle grade audience, since this is a young adult middle grade novel. I thought it was really thought-provoking. I thought Emezi's writing style was very accessible, especially for the age group they were writing for. The fundraising group that I worked with for the Trans Rights Readathon was able to raise over $12,000 for the Transgender Law Center. If that's not cool as fuck, I don't know what is. I also read a book I never thought I would read last month, and that book was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I'm in a neighborhood book club that gets together once a month, and this month the pick was obviously A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and it was so good. I never thought I would read this, never thought I would enjoy it as much as I did. This book had me racking my brain and flipping the pages faster than ever. This book is perfect for fans of true crime podcasts, the podcast Serial, and just true crime in general, right? Criminal Minds. I'm not really a true crime girly, but I might be after this book. And it follows our main character, Pippa, and she's doing her senior capstone project, and she decides that she wants to make her project investigating a murder that happened 5 years ago from one of the students in their high school, Andy Bell. Here's the synopsis really quickly because I don't know how to explain things. Pretty and popular high school senior Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend, Sal Singh, who then killed himself. It was all anyone could talk about, and 5 years later, Pip sees how the tragedy still haunts her town. Now, a senior herself, Pip decides to re-examine the closed case for her final project, at first just to cast doubt on the original investigation. But soon after, she discovers a trail of dark secrets that might actually prove Sal innocent, and the line between past and present begins to blur. Someone in Fairview doesn't want Pip digging around for answers, and now her own life might be in danger. Okay, I really can't give you much more than that without risking spoilers because I couldn't solve the case. But this was so good, so much fun. The audiobook was so interactive because it's also an investigative log, and there's a series of text messages and transcripts and interviews. And so there's a different voice actor for when Andy interviews people. It was just so well put together. I loved it. I thought the ending was very satisfying, and it made me want to pick up the sequel. And it's something that I'm eagerly waiting to read, and I think I'm going to read it when I decide that I want to break from fantasy, whenever that's going to be. But yeah, I did not expect to love A Good Girl's Guide to Murder this much, but I was hooked from the beginning, and I'm so glad I read it with a group of girls. Next book I read was X's and O's by Amy Lee. I read this on the plane ride home from St. Louis after seeing Samantha Shannon on tour because I thought, you know what, why not? And this book had me laughing out loud and kicking my feet in the air because I thought it was so freaking cute. We're following our main character, Tara Chen, who is a bookstagrammer and book talker, book influencer, if you will, who is determined to find the one after she was dumped by her raggedy fiance. She also happens to be moving into an apartment, and her new roommate is Trevor Metcalf, a sexy firefighter. Tara's best solution to finding the one is to go back through her list of exes and basically reconnect with them to see if they still have a spark and see if they are the one for her. And so Trevor agrees to help her with this task, and butterflies ensue from there because obviously, she's gonna end up with Trevor, right? And so just watching that happen and unfold couldn't stop me from smiling. It's so cute because Tara is trying to reconnect with her exes. Some are successful, some aren't, some are just douchebags, and you're slowly watching Trevor just fall in love with her, and it's just... it's so cute. And it definitely made me really excited to read Amy Lee's other book, which is Set on You. I know all of her books are planning to follow influencers in some capacity, and Set on You follows her sister, who's a fitness influencer. But I don't know, I really love this one because it was kind of cheeky since she's a bookstagrammer, and so you get to watch her create content for Bookstagram on live and go live, and people will be like, why don't you just date the firefighter? He's so hot, just date your roommate. And it's also just kind of tongue-in-cheek because she's in a romance novel trying not to live out the plot of a romance novel with all the romance tropes. It's really fun. It made me smile and, like I said, laugh a lot. Genuine, there was an Office reference that had me cackling. It was so good. Very quick, very breezy. Can't wait to read more from this author, and I definitely recommend it. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Alrighty, everyone, those are all the books I read in March. What was your favorite read of March? I would love to know in the comments. And if you're new here and if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to my channel. And at the time of this video, I have officially launched a Patreon. It is something I've been wanting to do forever. Launching a Patreon is something I've been wanting to do for forever, and I'm so glad I finally took the leap. And so I am so grateful to all of my patrons that are here. And if you're interested in joining my Patreon and joining the bookmark and sticker club that I will be sending rewards out for every single month, you can pledge right now. April's rewards are a double-sided Book Talk Made Me Read It bookmark with the pink. It's got a very satin matte finish, as well as 2 waterproof vinyl stickers. One of them matches the bookmark that says Book Talk Made Me Read It. And there's another sticker that says Welcome to the Friendpire, which is kind of an ode to the fantasy and friends community. So yeah, if you want to pledge to the Dragon tier to get those rewards shipped to you, the link is in my bio. I'm so happy to have you here. And special thank you to all of my patrons who are already joining me on this journey. I love you so much. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye, friends.